Maharaj, you're muted.
Prapto yasya pratitya kripaya Shri Gurum Tamnatisme Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvyaivacha Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo Nikhila shruti mole radnamaladiti Nirajita padapankajanta Aji mukta kulairupashyamanam paritasram harinam samshrayami Anarpita charinchirat karunayavatirna kalam Shamarpaitam unmatas valarasan savakti shriyam Hari purata sundara dyoti kadamba sandipita Sada hridaye kandaresh purato vasachinandana Ajanulambita bujjo kanakavadatu Sankirtanaika vitaro kamalaya takshu Vishwambaro dhiyagaro jugadharma palo Ande jagat priyakaro karunavataro Yadini shakti sarupa Gauranga suridaya cha Bhakta shakti pradanaya Dadhara namaskute He Krishna karuna sindhu dinabandho jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskute Radhe Vrindavanadishe Karunamrita Vahine Kripaya Nijapadabja Dashanmahim Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadha Lakshaya Chipta Shakamaditarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanam Bhinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhinde Namaste Charanarvindam Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Sriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai Sri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Sri Harinam Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Brahmananda Hari Hari Om. So, okay. So, welcome to all of you. Dandavat, thanks for coming again. We're continuing today with our series of lectures on the Navadvipa of Sri Mahaprabhu as a form of complement with the topics we studied some months ago, Mahaprabhu in Puri. Now we are going to Navadvip. So let's make a brief recap of what we were seeing yesterday. Also for those who were not present, we gave some sort of introduction to a non-introductory topic. It was an introductory, non-introductory lecture, if you will, speaking about the supremacy of the ultimacy of Gaur Tattva, or the principle of Sriman Mahaprabhu, and how this Gaur-lila is not only a bridge to Krishna-lila, but a destiny unto itself. It has a life of its own, if you will. And not only that, but we consider that like the ultimate Gaur-lila, the ultimate converging point of Krishna-lila, the most natural and deep extension of Krishna-lila. Being Mahaprabhu who he is, Krishna in his most introspective moments, as we mentioned yesterday, with this deep existential crisis that gave rise to this volcanic, super ecstatic form of Sri Chaitanya Dev, whom Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami calls Paratattva Simha, or the highest reach of the Absolute. When the Absolute, with all the possibilities in the life of the Absolute are played out, in its fullest form, we have this form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is Krishna himself, as we mentioned, but also Krishna plus. It's Krishna, his most upgraded presentation. And that's why we say we call Krishna Prabhu, but we never hear that we call Krishna Mahaprabhu. That's the title for Sri Chaitanya Dev. So Prabhu Krishna becomes Mahaprabhu as Sri Chaitanya Dev. No? The perfection of the most perfect. No? Purna, Purnatara, Purnatama, and Purnatamatama. No? The most perfect of the most perfect, and so on. So we spend considerable time showing this important point about how Mahaprabhu is this highest expression of Sri Krishna and his corresponding Lila and abode as well. Because he's Krishna in this particular experiment of tasting the mood of Sri Radha, Radha Bhava, Duty, Svalitam, Naumi, Krishna, Sarupam. So in that context, we mentioned how different biographies of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu describe him. There are 7 main biographies. And gradually, the ultimate identity of Sri Chaitanya is being unfolded as the biographies developed, if you will. The very first one speak of him more in Puranic terms. He's an avatar of Vishnu. He's coming to establish Yuga Dharma, destroy Asuric mentality, and so on. They say, and gradually, he's Krishna himself, some elements of Sri Radha, and eventually we find in the last biography of these 7, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the most refined presentation of who Mahaprabhu is. And Krishna trying to taste the mood of Sri Radha with 3 desires in mind. So in this context, we finished our class yesterday analyzing the Mangala Charan of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first 6 verses, where Krishna Das Kaviraj is presenting gradually more and more ingredients about Mahaprabhu, and his real identity and the real reason for his descent. First, speaking in general terms, he's Bhagavan. He's coming to bestow a very wonderful thing, but still not saying what that wonderful thing is. Then saying Brahman is his effulgence, Paramatma is his plenary expansion. He's Bhagavan, so I am Bhagavan, and even something more. No, there's no truth higher than him, and so on, till in the 6th verse he basically shows the full-fledged idea of who Mahaprabhu is. He's Krishna coming for 3 main desires: tasting the glory of Sri Radha, her pranay mahima, tasting what's the wonderful thing that she perceives in him. He wants to see that. What's in me that makes me so special and makes her going mad about me, basically. And 3rd, what's the astonishing happiness she's relishing while perceiving my beauty from the vantage point of her love. So because of these 3 desires, it is said, Sachi Garbha Sindhu Harindu. The son of Sachi appeared from the womb of her as the moon is rising from the ocean. So we were just ready for Mahaprabhu's birth, basically. And that after that birth, he's in this way, fully endowed with the motion of Sri Radha, Sri Sachinandan appeared finally. So today we will continue from that point, Mahaprabhu's appearance, his sacred birth, Gaur Purnim, if you will. But before that, let me share some brief words about how the rest of the Mangala Charan of Chaitanya Charitamrita develops, basically. Because there are a few more verses. Mangala Charan are like 14 verses, and we only mentioned something regarding the first 6. So the rest of the Mangala Charan is an extended version, and there are many verses that Krishna Das dedicates to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, like 5 verses for Nityananda Prabhu. So we may wonder, like, why? And very Aishvaric verses. Now, like we have the 3 Vishnus, Mahavishnu, Karvudakasai Vishnu, and Karana, and Siddhadakasai Vishnu, and Anantashes, and all of them are expansions of Balaram, of Nityananda. So in this type of context, Krishna Das presents the position of Srinitaya, like he's the source of all universes and so on, because he wants to make this point so we do not misunderstand Nityananda Prabhu, because Nityananda Prabhu has a considerable, unorthodox behavior. He's Avadut. Avadut means he's not caring for any social conventions. He may appear now in the middle of the class without only in coping, loincloth, and the coping may be tied on his head, not where it's supposed to be. and Mahaprabhu has to explain to the rest who he is actually and why. Everyone is like properly respecting him, basically. Many times in the Lila this happens. Interestingly, in Krishna Lila is the opposite way around. Nityananda's Balaram is taking care that Krishna is not misbehaving. But in Gaur Lila, the roles are inverted. And Balaram as Nityananda is the one the one who is misbehaving, if you will, and Krishna as Mahaprabhu is the one who has to cover the bases, basically, and explain why he's doing that and so on. So many verses like this in the Mangala Charan after the 6 that we studied yesterday. And there are some other verses directed to the remaining verses of members of the Panchatattva, Advaita, Gadadhar, and Srivas. No? Famous verse, Panchatattvam Makam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam, Bhakta Avataram, Bhakta Kyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. They're in this way. Krishnadas Kaviraj closes his Mangala Charan offering pranam to Sri Panchatattva. So that to begin with. And then in the next chapters, as I mentioned yesterday, the first 12 chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita are about explaining this Mangala Charan. Each one of these verses in different chapters. And only in chapter 13, the Lila of Mahaprabhu starts. First, Krishnadas Kaviraj wants to make clear we understand who Mahaprabhu is, what is his ontological position, who are his associates, what's the glory of his Lila. So when we get to the Lila, we do not feel just like, okay, some funny story now, he's born and he's doing this and that, but what's the foundation to all that? So after these 12 chapters, chapter 13 begins with the birth of Sri Chaitanya there. So we will go there now because no time to go through each of these 12 previous chapters. And very important to properly understand the birth of the unborn. So it sounds paradoxical because we are celebrating the birth of he who has no birth, basically, Aja, also called. And Krishna says in the Gita, no, he who understands my birth, the nature of my appearance and my activities does not return to this world. Janma karma chame divyam evam juveti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma. Help me. Janma karma chame divyam evam juveti tattvataha tyaktva
mame pisorjuna.
Thank you so much, Navrasa. Yes, getting old, what to do? So at least I remember it's Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 9. So I need to just reinsert that remaining line. So Krishna basically is saying there, whoever knows my janma and my karma, in this case karma doesn't mean what we understand as karma, but he says janma karma chame divyam. Divya means divine. So my divya karma means divine activities, another word for lila. Or Divya Janma, my birth is divine. Everything is in the context of divinity. So it's not under the laws, under the three-dimensional influence of the gunas, time and space. So whoever understands the nature of my appearance does not appear in this world. Interesting. He said, whoever understands why appearing to this world does not appear in this world anymore. Something like this. No? So if you understand the mystery of my birth, you no longer take birth here, basically. So that's a very crucial teaching. So let's share some words, since we have spoken considerably yesterday about Mahaprabhu coming because of the main purpose of his descent being tasting Radha. Let's for a moment switch to the secondary purpose of his descent. Some words about him establishing Yuga Dharma and disseminating Harinam Sankirtan as a byproduct of the main purpose. And that's an important point. Whatever Mahaprabhu is sharing is a consequence of what he's tasting. That's how it happens. That's why Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, when he spoke about Gosyanandis, who are the sharers, if you will, the ones who are engaged in distributing the teaching, he said, and we have the Bhajananandis on the other side, who are the ones who are absorbed in practice, and that's all. I mean, that's all. I don't mean to say that in a derogatory way. I mean, that's all. The all in all is there also. So Mahaprabhu himself did that in the last years of his life, and so many others. So Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta will say a Goshtyanandi, or what we will call a preacher, although I don't like the word that much, because some implications sometimes kind of evangelizing and converting people, and again, whatever. A Goshtyanandi, he says, is a Bhajananandi who is preaching. In other words, he's saying to be a Goshtyanandi is not an excuse to not be a Bhajananandi. A Bhajananandi is a Bhajananandi and may not be preaching. A Goshtyanandi is also Bhajananandi, but is preaching, is sharing. But both of them have to be Bhajananandi. Bhajananandi means you have to have an inner life, an internal life. It's not just about going out and telling people what to do, and you yourself are not following what you yourself are saying. You're not walking the talk, as they say. So you have to be willing to embrace everything you're coming out of your mouth. Immediately will be a boomerang to test you how much do you believe your own words. Because you can imagine after I give this type of lectures that I'm parroting for 2 hours to all of you, which is the reaction in my own life. Krishna says, okay, you say all those nice things for 2 hours. Let's see how much you believe your own narrative. So you have to really, if not, you cannot survive your own discourse in time, basically. So that's an important thing, and that's what Mahaprabhu taught. Mahaprabhu is Krishna in his Acharya-lila, especially when he accepts sannyas, we'll see. God acting as an Acharya, basically. Show and tell, teaching by example mostly, and precept as well. So let's invoke one famous verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe the most well-known one that we connect with Mahaprabhu, as the Goswamis did. Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yaknyai Sankirtana Prayer Jayanti Hisumeda Saha. This is a verse, and not everyone is connecting with Mahaprabhu in other lineages or sampradayas, but our Goswamis teach us or taught us how to see the Bhagavatam through a particular lens that take us to this type of conclusion. So this verse basically saying, suffering pranam to Sri Chaitanya, Krishna Varnam Tvisa Akrishnam. He says, he who is constantly pronouncing these syllables, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Varnam. Varnam is like syllables or letters in one, or Varnam means also color. No? So Tvisa Akrishnam. He who is Krishna, it says, but Tvisa Akrishnam. Krishna means, but who is not Krishna. Krishna also means black, right? So Varna means color. So he who has a black color, but now Akrishna is appearing in non-blackish color. He's Krishna, but not in, Krishna means black also again. So he's Krishna, Shyam Sundar, but not in that Shyam color, because his mood is different, as we mentioned yesterday. Color has to do with an emotion. Depending on the emotion you're in, Bhagavan appears in a particular color. It also means he's God, but Krishna, he's not coming in the mood of I'm Bhagavan. Mostly his mood is Bhakta, Bhakta Bhagavan. He's in the mood of a devotee. As we say yesterday, he's Siddha Krishna, but acting as a sadhaka, as a devotee, trying to attain the inner transformation to taste Radha Bhav. So Krishna Varnam Tvisa Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam. He's coming with Sanga Upanga Astra, Saanga Upanga Astra Parshadam. He's coming with his limbs, associates, weapons, and so on. Now we'll say some words in that connection. Jagnai Sankirtana Prayer Jayanti Hisumedasa. He's deeply engaged in the Yajna and Sankirtan, and those who have who are very intelligent will worship him in this Kali Yuga through that Yajna, Harinam Sankirtan. So that's a very particular special verse of the Bhagavatam glorifying Mahaprabhu. So again, this verse is mostly focused, he's not saying Radha Bhav and so on, but he's focusing on Harinam Sankirtan, which is kind of this secondary purpose of Mahaprabhu's birth. We are speaking today about Gaur Purnima, Mahaprabhu's birth. To begin with, also I will speak a little bit more after. Let's see if we have time about Mahaprabhu's early pastimes as a child and so on. So this has to do also with his descent, not only tasting Radha, but establishing Yuga Dharma. So as we mentioned, Gaura-lila is something very confidential, very intimate, very introspective. And from that introspective moment, such a massive dissemination comes. So there is place for that. Like, for example, also we have the famous example of Srila Prabhupada, when he was traveling, crossing the ocean towards the west, and he was writing on the Jaladuta this famous prayer at the lotus feet of Krishna. This prayer, when he intimately, that was not something meant for publication. So he was asking Krishna, oh Bhai, oh my friend, if you give me the energy, the Shakti, I will be able to preach. And my Gurudev is in the department of Sri Radha, so if he's pleased, that will be good for you, basically. That will increase your piety. Sri Radha is pleased. You will gain something for that. So Radha is represented in my Gurudev, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, Varshabhana Vanidhaita. So give me the Shakti to follow his instructions. So in this way, very intimately, he addressed and confidentially addressed Krishna like that. So in that intimate moment, which was the result, Krishna shared so much power to Prabhupada. And then came something so massive out of that. From a very intimate moment, a very massive distribution. So something similar here with Gaura-lila. A very intimate, confidential moment of the Absolute, in the life of the Absolute, and the consequence of that, such a widespread dissemination. So again, this is a very interesting verse where the Bhagavatam is describing Mahaprabhu coming with his anga, upanga. Upanga means also ornaments, his intimate associates, his anga, his limbs, like also Advaita, Nityananda, or his astra, his weapons. But the weapons is to say, Mahaprabhu is not coming with Sudarshan chakra for hands and cutting heads here and there. No, his weapons are his beauty, his chanting, and his dancing. That's the way he's defeating, killing the demons. He's not killing anyone, but he's killing the demonic mentality. How? Just raising his hands, dancing, and conquering everything on his way, basically. And the last line says, Jayanti hi Sumedasa. Those who are Sumedasa, who has in the words of Srila Siddhar Maharaj, a very refined theistic intelligence, but because not of intellectual capacity necessarily, but because of bhakti sukriti, they will give their lives in this Sankirtan Yajna. They will surrender and worship him through the sacrifice of the congregational chanting of the holy names. There is a nice analogy that Lochan Das makes in Chaitanya Mangal concerning this idea of Harinam Sankirtan and the idea of Yajna. Sometimes the idea of Yajna is more related to the fire sacrifice and all these rituals, swaha, swaha. So how to connect this notion with Harinam Sankirtan? So once someone asked Mahaprabhu on one occasion, okay, if Nam Sankirtan is the Yajna for this age, for Kali, where is the area of the sacrifice which is generally used in all the sacred rituals, like the space, specific space. So Mahaprabhu said, your ears are that area of sacrifice, where as we will see, the ghee will be poured. The ghee will be something in particular also. So you have to make your ears the area for this yajna, because about hearing Srinam. And the spoon that will pour the ghee, now we will see what's the ghee. Your tongue is the spoon. So he makes all this symbol. So you have to use your tongue to pour the ghee of the holy name into the area of sacrifice, the yajna pit of your ears, basically. In your ears and in others as well, but first begin at home as usual. And in that way, the fire, again, the fire of bhakti will increase in your heart more and more, basically. So in other words, we have to become that type of priests engaged in yajna, sitting in the area of yajna, like they chant the mantras and trying to invoke the presence of Bhagavan through the swaha and different mantras. We are doing that through Sankirtan. With our ears being the yajna space, our tongue being the spoon, Srinam being the ghee, and Bhakti being the fire that has to increase more and more. So as we know, Srinam is very special for us in our own tradition. We have a whole theology of the name, which is very unique. In every spiritual traditions, they speak about the importance of the name of God, but in like an aspect of their practice, chanting the name of God. But for us, that's not an aspect of the practice, that's the practice, and everything else is an aspect. So it's a whole sadhana that revolves around that particular aspect, which is the center actually of everything else. No, because why? For us, Nam is non-different from Nami. The name is non-different from the named. Abhinatvam Nama Naminu. So we worship the name. Krishna himself is worshiping the name. Is something as Mahaprabhu is chanting and worshiping that divine name. And again, the name is not only Juga Dharma, but for Mahaprabhu, also the name is the key for accessing his inner desires and being successful in the ultimate purpose of his descent, tasting Radha Bhav. He's embracing that sadhana as a sadhaka, again, trying to achieve that particular sadhya or goal. So again, on one side, we have the internal reasons for Mahaprabhu's appearance, but also here we have in part, one of the external ones, which is establishing the Juga Dharma. Also in Shastra, some other reasons are mentioned. For example, as we will see, the calling of Advaita Acharya. Now we will go to that section. Advaita Acharya is inviting the Juga Avatar portion as aspect to descend. And also some other reason that sometimes it's mentioned is that Mahaprabhu descended by the chanting of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was chanting in such a way that Mahaprabhu felt, I cannot resist, I have to go. I have to take part of such a chanting. He was the Namacharya, so I want to be there also. So again, as we mentioned, Mahaprabhu is not coming in the mood of killing demons. Actually, in Shastra, it is said that even Krishna himself is not killing demons. And you may say, how do you say that? I mean, so many demons Krishna is killing in the Braja-lila. But the Acharyas explain that's the Vishnu portion of him. Vishnu is the aspect of the divine in charge of regulating this world. Krishna is absorbed in and relishing rasa in Vrindavan. He has no other business apart from loving interaction with his devotees. Killing of demons and so on has to do with the Vishnu side of him, if you will, which, as we mentioned yesterday, is an aspect of Krishna. Vishnu is God. Krishna is something else. Krishna is not an aspect of God. God is an aspect of Krishna. Krishna is not God. Vishnu is God. Narayan is a figure that fully represents God. Krishna is Krishna, something more. As we always, Krishna is God when God wants to be himself in the full informality and intimacy at home. Like you say, the president, but the president has a life of his own in his house with his wife and children, and they are not treating him like the president. No, the president enters his house, and his grandson is not just, welcome, Mr. President, so such a pleasure to have you. No, he's jumping on his head and just, Grandpa, go to the floor and walk like a snake. And the president of Bulgaria is like rolling on the ground like a snake by the strength of the affection of one little child. So he's still the president, no? And he didn't lose the post, but at home, he's something more, not something less. The designation, the label president remains somewhere else in the office. No? He will take attention of that tomorrow. Now he's enjoying much more in that particular. Do you follow my point? No? So again, Vishnu Narayan is God. No? Krishna, when Krishna goes to the office, if you will. But Krishna in Vrindavan, God is at home, and the designation God remain in the office, in Vaikuntha office, and in Vrindavan, he's like walking barefoot. I mean, he does not even wear shoes and suit and tie. He's just barefoot, enjoying life with his friends and so on. So So in this way, Mahaprabhu being Krishna himself, that's my point. As we mentioned, he's not an avatar, but it's Krishna himself. We spoke about that today. He's not basically killing anyone, but he's in a very unique disposition. And as an extension of that, we are here basically. We can speak about that by the grace that came as his own experience. So it is said that Mahaprabhu as Krishna is coming mostly, as we mentioned, to relish. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prema rasa niryasa korite ashwadam, raga marga bhakti loki korite prachanam. First and foremost, Krishna's Mahaprabhu comes to taste prema rasa, a particular type of mood, which is Radha Bhav. And as a byproduct of that, raga marga bhakti loki korite prachanam. In the world, it is established the Raga Nuga path, basically, which is the path in which one follows in the wake of the inhabitants of Braj. And that comes as a result of the experience of Mahaprabhu again. First comes the personal experience, and then comes whatever you want to give to others. Achar and prachar, these two terms. Achar means personal behavior, therefore we have acharya. And prachar means, sometimes people translate that as preaching, which is not the most exact term, but has to do with, the very word speaks about that. Prachar includes achar. Actually, it's pra-achar, as we mentioned many times. So pra means a very special type of, and achar means behavior. Interesting. So prachar, we may say preaching, but actually prachar means a very special type of behavior, which is the only way of touching others' heart. You follow? If I'm really practicing seriously, maybe I do not need to say too much even, because Mahaprabhu had that standard, as we mentioned last time we were here. He converted the great Pandit of India, Bhattacharya Sarvabhauma, just sitting in front of him in silence for a week. He didn't say one word. He didn't need to preach, because the pores of his body were just speaking through the strength of his example. So in 1 week, he had the biggest Pandit of India totally converted. And then he says some 2-3 words like checkmate, and Sarvabhauma was dancing, joining Mahaprabhu in his Sankirtan. But the point is, if you take out that achar, what remains? I mean, what remains in your prachar? You can see the word prachar. You take the word achar from prachar, the only remains PR, public relationships. So it's more like a social phenomenon. It has nothing to do with sharing of the heart in deep way. We laugh, but it's real. We laugh because we should cry, actually. So again, as we mentioned, it's interesting because Mahaprabhu is coming, and there's one side of Mahaprabhu, which is the Yuga avatar, which is the specific descent that comes in every age for establishing the prescribed method for each age. But interestingly, in this Kali Yuga in particular, there's a coincidence between the time for the Yuga avatar to come and Krishna wanting to taste Radha Bhav. So that Yuga avatar, which normally comes in a particular mood, now is coming with some upgraded mood and some other purpose in his own agenda, which affects his Yuga, his function as Yuga avatar. So whatever he comes to establish as the Yuga Dharma becomes affected with the very own thing that Krishna himself is tasting as Mahaprabhu, and that becomes part of what we can taste in the Yuga Dharma in this particular Kali Yuga. So that's very, very interesting. That's called Chaitanya Shrishti Prem Sankirtan, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the unique creation of Mahaprabhu called Prem Sankirtan. Not only Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan, Prem Sankirtan, and now with a particular type of Prem. So the overflowing of Mahaprabhu's own experience is affecting his delivering of the Yuga Dharma. He's not just delivering the Yuga Dharma as every Kali Yuga, the Yuga Avatar is doing, but in this case, his delivering of Yuga Dharma is affected by what he himself is trying to taste. So that becomes the unique Yuga Dharma of this Kali Yuga. That's why sometimes this Kali Yuga is called Dhanya Kali, which means fortunate Kali Yuga. Very fortunate. The Bhagavatam says, Kalim Sabajayanti Adya. Great personalities are praying for being born in this Kali Yuga, basically. In one sense, Kali Yuga is the worst age, but in other sense, it's the best of all. You have these two parallel. So you choose in which version of Kali Yuga you want to live, basically. So let's go to Mahaprabhu's birth. So before his official birth, is it say that Mahaprabhu organized that different devotees that will be his seniors in the Lila appear to prepare the stage, if you will, like his parents and his teachers, all those who will be his seniors in the Lila, like his guru, his Param Guru, Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, his parents, Sachimata, Jagannath Mishra, Advaita Acharya, another senior in the Lila. So all of them appear before Mahaprabhu to create the proper scenario for him to eventually appear. Even sometimes it is said that some other great personalities appear some centuries before Mahaprabhu came, like Chandidas, Vidyapati, Jayadev Goswami, because all of them wrote certain things that eventually Mahaprabhu will taste and relish in his last years in the Gambhira. And through that hearing and through that relishing, eventually he became successful in tasting Radha by relishing the works of these authors, Bilba Mangala Thakur, Jayadev Goswami, Chandidas, Vidyapati, and so on. So sometimes Gaudiya Acharya will say, Mahaprabhu organized for them to appear some centuries back, write those works, and then he came and relished them, basically. So it is mentioned that before Mahaprabhu appeared in this world, there were devotees. And Advaita Acharya was like the senior most member of the community, if you will. So all of them, all of the Vaishnavas will reunite, like congregate with Advaita Acharya, and they will share study of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and Satsanga, and trying always to establish like the supreme position of bhakti above all. But it is mentioned that at one point Advaita Acharya, who we know Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu, one of his sides, and it is said that every avatar that comes to this world comes through the agency of Mahavishnu. So Mahaprabhu is not an avatar, he's an avatari, but somehow he's a divine descent. So he's coming through the agency of Mahavishnu. How? Advaita Acharya is calling him to come. So it is mentioned how at one point Advaita Acharya, despite everything was nice with the community of devotees, at one point he became overwhelmed by deep compassion. Because, okay, community of devotees was nice, but outside of that, he was like having a glimpse of the condition of the world in general, and he realized this is not nice. Kali Yuga is unfolding, and so what to do? No, he was a very powerful personality. So he was reminded of one verse in Shastra that mentioned that if you offer to Bhagavan one tulsi leaf and a little bit of water, Ganga water, he will be fully pleased. So in this way, very simple, as you can see, not very elaborate worship, just water, a little bit leaf. As Krishna says in the Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Tuyam Jomi Bhaktya Prayachati Tadaham Bhakti Upaharitam Ashnami Prayatatmana. Yeah, you can offer me fruit, flower, water, but in the verse he says Bhakti, 2 times. That's the real spice, that's the real ingredient. The rest is secondary. So Advaita Acharya he started to worship Bhagavan with Ganga Jal and Tulsi, and he started to call Bhagavan screaming, desperate with compassion, with his heart melting in compassion, calling Bhagavan, please come, please descend, please redeem the world, basically. Very intensely, very intensely. So this is one of the main reasons, secondary reasons mentioned, why Mahaprabhu came, to reply to the call of Advaita Acharya, his devotee. Ultimately, as we mention always, the desire of the devotee is what gives rise to the manifestation of the different forms of Bhagavan. Because every form of Bhagavan is there to reciprocate with a particular love of the devotee. The devotee wants to serve and love Krishna in a certain way. Krishna appears in a corresponding form to fulfill that desire. Yashoda has a very extreme Vatsalya affinity, so she wants to serve Krishna in that way. We see there the picture of Yashoda Damodar. So Krishna has to appear in that particular form to reciprocate with Yashoda's prem. So that's how it works. All the forms of Bhagavan, I like to say, are carved out of a particular love of the devotee. He lives to reciprocate with that. So the love of a devotee makes God takes a particular shape, basically. So it's a shape out of affection. So that's how it. So in this case, we have this unique example of Advaita calling Bhagavan in a particular way, and he's descending, and he's showing the essence of Archana. You see here, Advaita is not doing very elaborate worship, but putting his whole heart into calling, screaming and shouting and crying, melting his. That's Archana, basically, ultimately. In the beginning, we start more like 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 1, 7, 8, 1. Now it's kind of the mudra. It was more like. but just, I mean, we have to begin somewhere, no problem. But our Archana should evolve to the point that we are just like crying and directing to Bhagavan in a way that there may be just one tulsi leaf, some water, and the rest of the water will come from our eyes, and we will offering the flower of our hearts, and all the external ingredients now come from our own body in the form of tears and our prayers, our hearts. So gradually our worship should evolve in that direction. Archana doesn't mean just like attached to certain formulaic stuff. That's not our school. So Advaita Acharya is showing that. So in that precise moment, where Advaita Acharya is calling Bhagavan to descend, it's a magic coincidence took place, because on one side we have Advaita Acharya Mahavishnu calling the Yuga avatar to come and redeem the world first. And interestingly, that moment which Advaita Acharya is calling is the exact time for the Yuga avatar to come. So no coincidence. And in that same moment is the moment where we will say Krishna decided, I will come to this world to taste Radha Bhav. So all these three things happen together. So all those ingredients are all present in that same personality who descended as a result of that, which is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No? So this is the way, this is a little background to what we call Gaur Purnim, or the birth of Sri Chaitanya. So as we say yesterday, Mahaprabhu is coming on Purnim. Purnim means Purna, Purnima, full moon. So Krishna was born in Astami, which means, and Sri Radha was born on Astami, which is half. No? Radha and Krishna, half moon, half moon. You put the two moons together of Radha and Krishna, you have full moon of Mahaprabhu, who is Radha and Krishna combined in a particular way. No? As we say, in a particular way. And interestingly, that's another topic, because we say Mahaprabhu is not Radha technically, he's Krishna in the mood of Radha. And who is Radha in Gaura-lila? Gadadhar Pandit. So Gadadhar Pandit is Radha giving herself fully, emptying herself out, so Krishna can be successful in his project. So since Mahaprabhu is Krishna being full of Radha Bhav, and he appears on the full moon, and Gadadhar is Radha emptying herself so to allow that full moon to happen, on which day Gadadhar Pandit appears? Amavasya. Amavasya means new moon, which means no moon. Because all the moon is on the other side, Mahaprabhu Krishna is tasting that, and Radha is giving that. Even though it seems like diminished position, actually, if you properly understand, you understand, wow, position of Gadadhar Pandit is in one sense higher than Mahaprabhu himself. But that's another series of lectures. I won't go there now. So again, we are celebrating today. Of course, it's not officially Gaur Purnim in the calendar, but somehow we are celebrating Gaur Purnim by invoking all this divine play enacted on planet Earth with all its, because it's a drama, a divine drama enacted on a particular stage with different characters, the Nitya Parishads, the proper stage, Navadvipa Dham, all of this composed of Suddha Sattva, or transcendental energy. For example, speaking about Navadvipa, it is mentioned Navadvipa means 9 islands. So each of these 9 islands represent the 9 angas of bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevana, Arthanam, Bandhan, Dasan, Sakhi, Nivedana, Dasan, Sakhi, Atma Nivedana. So basically, to reside in Navadvipa means to reside within the fold of these angas of bhakti. No, it's not just I have a ticket, geographically I moved, I'm in Navadvipa. What does it imply to be in Navadvipa? Shravanam, Kirtan, and Vishnu, and so on. So this is a Pauganda-lila, the lila on manifest on earth. So in the same way that Krishna's lila on earth has its own unique features, similarly the Pauganda-lila of Mahaprabhu on earth has unique features. For example, what we are speaking about now, Krishna's birth, Mahaprabhu's birth. In Nitya Navadvipa, Mahaprabhu is never born. In Golok Vrindavan, Krishna is never born. He's always there. But when the lila unfolds on earth, there is all this chronological unfolding that is closer to how things happen on earth. So Krishna is born. So that gives a special experience to Yashoda, who does not experience Krishna's birth in Golok Vrindavan. So the same applies to Yashoda and Gaura-lila, who is Sachi Mata, which is expressed in this Pauganda-lila on earth. So it is said that regarding Mahaprabhu's birth, we are getting closer. Be patient, but longing also. Before Mahaprabhu was born, Sachi Devi, Mahaprabhu's mother, gave birth to 8 girls, basically. But all of them died one after another. You may see some parallels with Krishna's. We will start to see many parallels between Krishna-lila and Gaura-lila. And then it is said that they have one child, male child, Jagannath Mishra and Yashoda, who is Mahaprabhu's elder brother, called. Don't expect that I will say everything. Vishwarup. Okay, thank you so much. So Vishwarup is Mahaprabhu's elder brother. So after that, it is said that Gaur Sundar entered the womb, Sachigarbha Sindhu Harindu, the womb of Sri Sachi Devi, and he remained in her womb for 13 months. So a unique pregnancy. No? So it is said that before Mahaprabhu was entering into the womb, this was in the moment of that, both Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi started to have very unique experiences and visions, similar to what happened with Yashoda and Nanda. In the moment when Mahaprabhu was entering the womb, basically, which again, it is described, it didn't happen due to physical intercourse, but just heart transference, whatever. So Jagannath Mishra was telling to Sachimata, I'm seeing wonderful things. I'm seeing that your body is totally shining. You look like if Lakshmi Devi is residing wherever you are going. All people is offering you very special respect without even thinking about that. And people is coming to me and giving me wealth and gifts. And I'm not just asking that as all. And Sachi says, oh, the same things are exactly happening to me as well. So I'm seeing wonderful beings flying in the sky and offering praise. Someone may say, maybe I get in this delusional. I may need to go to a psychiatrist or something. I'm seeing stuff or whatever. And the two of them were sharing notes in this way. We were having dreams and seeing dreams with the abode of Bhagavan is manifesting, and I'm feeling that some great being is entering from my heart to your heart. So this is the type of way as Bhagavan is appearing. So they are totally embedded into this Vatsalya mood, and that's how Mahaprabhu accesses the womb of Sachi Devi. So again, 13 months. So after a year, 12 months, Sachi's womb still there, Mahaprabhu is there. So some concern was there. What's happening? The boy is not, imagine you are, again, this is not a lila, human-like lila. So there are ingredients that we can empathize with as humans. If you're a mother and you're pregnant of 12 months, you start to get concerned. Okay, I think you should have appeared 3 months ago or something. So Jagannath Mishra went to Nilambar Chakravarti, and he's Sachimata's father, basically. So he's Jagannath Mishra's father-in-law. How do you say? Yeah, father-in-law, that's the word. So he was an astrologer. So Nilambar Chakravarti started to make the calculations. He said, in this particular month, the child will be born. 13th month, basically. So it is said that when Mahaprabhu was just about to appear, there was a lunar eclipse. So Rahu, according to the Vedic view, was swallowing the moon, basically. So poetically, it is said that Rahu was doing that because he couldn't tolerate that the material moon of this planet was shining, and he knew Gaur Chandra, the golden moon, is about to be born. So what's this nonsense moon they're doing? So I have to swallow it, and let the golden moon appear and shine forth. No, sometimes it's say like Gaur Purnim, basically golden moon, full moon. But also on some other level, people will consider a lunar eclipse like inauspicious moment. So to counteract the inauspiciousness, they all got together in the Ganges and started to chant the names of Bhagavan. So in some way, Mahaprabhu was being born. Before being born already, he was invoking this Sankirtan. Everyone was singing, to counteract the inauspiciousness on one level, but actually to show what's about to come through Mahaprabhu, the Nam Sankirtan. So it is said that at that precise moment, when it was the moment of Mahaprabhu's being born, in the distance, Advaita Acharya started to dance ecstatically. Again, he could perceive as a great mystic, Bhagavan has come. My call was not in vain, basically. And he was with Haridas Thakur. Remember, he was also one who was chanting and attracted Bhagavan to come. So the two of them were in Shantipur, dancing like mad and singing and celebrating. And nobody else was able to understand what's going on. Yes, we like to dance and sing, but that's a very unique way of celebrating something. We don't have an idea about it. So different devotees, elders that were already there, Srivas Pandit, Chandrasekhar, all of them were like celebrating, knowing what was happening. So again, one day in the evening, as we know, when the moon is appearing on Purnim, everyone was chanting Sri Hari, Ganga, and Sri Gaur Sundar appeared. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. So again, first the name appeared. Everyone was singing Sri Nam, and then he appeared. Like showing, if you want me to appear, go through Nam. Not different from me, and eventually I will appear also as a natural expression of that Nam. And as we know, we will see how in the different stages of Mahaprabhu's life, he was always inspiring people to engage in Sankirtan. Before being born even, but also when he was a baby, as we know, he was crying, and only he will stop crying if people will start to sing Hari, Hari, Hari. So he was calm. So everyone was engaged in Harinam Sankirtan. What to speak when he became a devotee and adult and so on. So it is said that Mahaprabhu was born, to be more exactly, for those who like this type of technical details, one Friday, today Friday, yes. Yeah. Not today, but the Friday, February 18th, 1486. That's the year. So on a solar consideration, February 18th is Gaur Purnima. Of course, we celebrate it according to lunar calculations, so every year will be a different day. But for those who likes all those details. So eventually Mahaprabhu is born again, and everyone who was taking darshan of him as a baby, golden moon, golden baby, were totally attracted to him, his limbs, his form, his movements, everything about him was captivating. And all of them were bringing different gifts. Did they say that the demigods came dressed as humans and were like blessing the just newborn child and bringing different gifts to him. And all the different dancers and singers of Navadvipa also came to celebrate the occasion. And again, more dancing, more singing. And everyone, all Navadvipa was present there with their respective offerings, offering their hearts, but also in the form of different gifts for the newborn. So again, different rituals were there for the birth of the baby, as it is Garbhodana Samskar and different Samskars that come after the conception and so on. And Jagannath Mishra, it is mentioned, he reciprocated, giving charity to all the people who came. And some days after Mahaprabhu was born, a few days after, Sita Thakurani came. She's the wife of Advaita Acharya, and she Mahaprabhu was born with the name Vishvambar Mishra. Jagannath Mishra is his father. His Vishvambar means the one who nourishes the whole Vishva, the whole universe, or this maintainer of the universe. Through Sankirtan, we will say, through Prem. But also Sita Thakurani came and gave Mahaprabhu and how's in English? Nickname? A nickname. So which was the nickname? Nimai. Because he was born under neem tree. And neem tree, as we know, is known for having an antiseptic properties, and also in the Vedic lore, it is considered that it's like protecting one from subtle influences of ghosts and witches and all this stuff. So she put this name on him as to bless and protect him. So from that moment on, he was known also as Nimai. Not Nimai Pandit yet. The Pandit side is yet about to come, but he had these two names, Vishwambar and Nimai, basically. So, and it is said that when Sita Thakurani saw the little Nimai, she felt immediately Krishna. But she, at the same time, she felt, okay, it's just, the only difference is color, basically. But we are speaking about again, color means emotional disposition, but person is the same, basically. So this initial section, speaking about Mahaprabhu's birth, basically concludes with this detailed description by Krishna Das Kaviraj of Sachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra's joy by finally having their child after 13 months of pregnancy. And it is said then that Nilambar Chakrabarti, again, the father-in-law of Jagannath Mishra, came and told, like in intimacy to Jagannath Mishra, I've seen Nimai, I have analyzed Nimai's, how to say in English, like physiognomy, like this art of physiognomy, how is the art of like ascertaining the different bodily signs and understanding the person by its face and different whatever. So he was expert in that, and he realized your Nimai, he told Jagannath Mishra, has all the different symptoms of a Mahapurush. Mahapurush means great personality, and there's one scripture, or more than one scripture in India, which teaches about those symptoms, how the eyes should be like lotuses, and the nose and the size of the ears and the forehead and the length of the arms, all the different parts of the body. For you to be a Mahapurush, they have to be shaped in a particular way. And Mahaprabhu had all those symptoms together. So he was only a baby, but many of them were already like anticipating who he will be, basically. So some words regarding Mahaprabhu's birth. Gaur Purnima, of course, so many more things could be shared, but at least something. Can we speak a little bit more about what comes after Mahaprabhu's birth? Because it doesn't end there. So let's share some words about Mahaprabhu's Balya-lila or Kumara-lila, and if we have time, his Pauganda-lila. So Balya-lila or Kumara-lila is his like 1 to 5 years old lilas, first 5 years of his life. Generally, that's the division of time. Kumar, Pauganda, and Kishore. And 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 6 to 10, 11 to 15. And from 16 on, Jovana is called. Or yeah, basically. So let's go with the Balya, Kumara-lila, some of them, and there are some. So the Balya 1 to 5 is considered till when Mahaprabhu starts to study on some level, his education. That's the end of the Kumara-lila and the beginning of the Pauganda-lila. Like when Krishna becomes a cowherd, if you will. That's the Pauganda-lila, basically. That's his education as a cowherd in the particular lila. So, and then Pauganda means from that moment that he starts his education till the moment he marries. That's Pauganda. You know that they are married quite young in India and in the lila. In India, not longer, but in the lila at least. And then after his marriage, he starts his Kishore lila and so on. So going to the Balya-lila, it is described how Mahaprabhu was, Nimai was crawling, you say crawling? As a baby, still not yet walking. These are all the symptoms of the Nara-lila. His he's source of all universes, but he doesn't know how to walk. So he's learning. He's walking and falling and waking again. So he's crawling and he's living, sometimes trying to walk a little bit, and he's leaving the, how do you say, the footprints on the earth there in Navadvipa, and all the footprints have different marks, because you have heard about the markings of the foot soles of Krishna, Radha, and Mahaprabhu. So those markings were there, like the umbrella, the thunderbolt, the lotus, the conch shell. So Satya and Jagannath were like following the footprints, and they were seeing like all these markings, and like, what's going on? Because again, they're embedded in Vatsalya. They are not feeling he's Bhagavan and the source of everything. He's our child. So, but what's there in his feet, basically, no? So he shared, then Jagannath Mishra shared again with Nilambar Chakravarti, this astrologer, and again he said, yeah, I already made my astrological chart, and I told you he's a Mahapurush, great personality. No? And they are not saying he's God, but great personality. Mahaprabhu could also mean great personality, if you will. No? So after some time, the ceremony was organized by Nilambar Chakravarti to bestow the name. Actually, the name Vishvambar was bestowed after the name Nimai. First, he received the name. Maybe today in legal terms, you have to have a name first, and you are written in the legal system. But there first came the nickname by Sita Thakurani, and after that, some ceremony was there, and officially now he's called Vishvambar Mishra. So it is said that a break festival was made, and the baby was made to choose between different items, as we have seen sometimes this ceremony where they put like a Bhagavatam and some money or some grains, like a way of saying, let's see which is his affinity. And so what did Mahaprabhu chose among those three? What do you think? Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. What? Srimad Bhagavatam. So he continued his Balia-lila, like crawling, but different pastimes similar to Krishna-lila, if you will. For example, he had, as a baby, was playing with snakes and garlanding himself with snakes. So you can imagine, I mean, try to imagine you have a baby of some months and he's like garlanding with snakes at every moment. And then he's resting on the snake, because again, the snake represents an Antashesh. No? So Mahaprabhu is the original Vishnu. So Vishnu is resting on an Antashesh. So he was playing. Ananta came in the form of the snake to assist him in his pastime. So it was not a snake that was biting, but it was really acting as a bed. So baby Nimai was doing that. So you can imagine what agitation it created in the village, basically. So then eventually Mahaprabhu, a little bit more grown, started to have some baby friends, if you will, some little Kumar pals. I started to, sorry? Oh. Okay, yeah, this part of this lila. So there's another lila which is very similar to Krishna-lila, which is a lila in which Nimai is eating dirt, similar to Krishna eating dirt. And as you know, the lila, he opens the mouth and Yashoda see all the universes. And actually Yashoda had brought before sweets to him, but he ate dirt. So Yashoda's Sachi, sorry, Sachi, I'm mixing the liver. Sachi is Yashoda, in other words. So Sachi brought some sweets for Nimai, and she told, eat these sweets. So I'll return in some minutes. And Nimai started to eat dirt. So she returned and said, what are you doing? You are eating dirt. And Nimai said, well, what you gave me, the sweets, is also earth, because a sweet is a transformation of the earth element. And he started like to unfold all this philosophy, how all ingredients are actually coming from earth and so on. No? So Sachi say, where did you learn such a speculation? No? I should start to school him. Yes, I mean, if we eat earth in the form of, I don't know, grains and all that, our body will be nourished. But if we eat dirt or earth directly, you will get sick. So you can say both are earth, but one will be healthy, the other will not. Now, like if you have a pot of earth, you make a pot with earth, you can carry water there. But if you take a bunch of earth, you can carry water with that, no? So she started to preach, to educate her Nimai. So Nimai says, "So thank you so much, ma'am, for instructing me. So next time I'm hungry, I will just go to suck your breast and drink your breast milk. I won't eat dirt anymore." Not so sure about that, but he said that at that moment. So there is another lila, well-known one. Some of these lilas are mostly mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat also. Where a Brahmin comes and visits the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Devi with all, and Jagannath Mishra provides the Brahmin with all the ingredients to cook. That was usual in the tradition. A Brahmin visits and he is provided with elements for cooking and offering the food to Bhagavan. So when the Brahmin was off making all the offering to the deity, Nimai came and he ate all the offering himself, basically. And that situation repeated 2 times more. I mean, the Brahmin, this was over, he cooked again, and Jagannath Mishra was like, "My child is spoiled," basically. So the Brahmin was like frustrated and feeling, at one point, Nimai was put in his room, and the Brahmin was sad, like, "Oh, for some reason, Bhagavan is not accepting my offering. I cannot offer properly." So in that way, Nimai manifests to the Brahmin as Bhagavan, saying, you wanted Bhagavan to eat the offering. I already 3 times ate your offering. So do not lament. I mean, I'm full almost. Akanta, as they say in India, Akanta means up to the neck. So I'm full. I'm full. If you go to India and they want to serve you prasad and they are serving too much, you say Akanta, Akanta. But actually, Akanta, I was asking Bhakti Parvat Muni Maharaj, Pranad Muni Maharaj now in India, one day he was serving me prasad and I was really full. And they are so generous that you cannot say no, but at the same time, you have to at one point to survive. So I said to him, "Maharaj, Akanta, Akanta." Akanta means like, and he told me, and that for you to know. He told me, no. He said, no, Akanta, no, Akanta. Akanta means that you have eaten so much that you put your finger in your mouth and you touch the food there. And I was like, so I told him, I don't think I have reached that level. You see, and he put more pressure. Well, you can say that just for them not to put more, but just for you to know what's real, kind of extreme. No? You can just touch that. So basically, Krishna reveals to this Brahmin and saying, "Already ate 3 times." And we have this same exchange in Krishna-lila, and he shows like how this same situation had its parallel version with that same devotee in Krishna-lila. No? Again, we will see many of these parallels. And since I'm so satisfied with your devotion, now you are coming, joining me in this new lila, and I'm eating your offering not only once, but twice, but thrice. No? So please do not lament, basically. So Nimai in a spurt, in a revelation says, "But do not reveal this to others. Do not spoil the whole Nara-lila coming now saying, oh, this boy is Bhagavan. No. Just keep it between ourselves, basically. So Nimai went to sleep, and the Brahmin, you can imagine, in ecstasy, takes that prasad. He realized it's prasad. It's not something not on. He starts to put all the prasad around, like do abhishek of the prasad. He starts to shout, and everyone is awakening in the house and what's going on. But Brahmin has to contain himself. He said, I won't tell anything. So it's difficult. Another story that is mentioned also is with two thieves that once came to Nimai's house, and Nimai was always adorned by different jewels and different precious gems and stones that were ornamenting him. So these thieves saw him and saw wow, they were appreciating that type of wealth, if you will. So they took the baby with them, with the idea of we will take all these ornaments and we'll bring him back. To the point that they took him on their shoulders, but by Nimai's Yoga Maya influence, the thieves started they thought we were going to our place, but eventually after half an hour, they found themselves back in Nimai's house with the baby. Saying what are we doing here? We were supposed to go to our place and we are in his place again. So they kind of became scared about who is this boy? He has some powers. they left him there and just escaped. So again, we see how, although he retains his Nara-lila function, he's performing all these like Aishvaric mystical situations in different moments. And of course, we have the Nokti side of Nimai also, no? I mean, not that Nokti as Krishna as we know, but he showed that side as well. So with his friends, they also were stealing some food from the neighbors and quarreling with other kids and whatever, no? And the ladies of the village will come to Sachi and say, your Nimai did this, your Nimai did that, and Sachi is totally biased in her Vatsalya and say, no, he cannot do that. He's such a charming. He cannot like believe all the things that the whole village is trying to tell her, and please understand, this is going on, basically, no? And whenever Sachi will say something to Nimai, he will get angry and start to break things and enter his room. And eventually Sachi will have to go and calm him and try to instruct him. And then, okay, he recognizes some of his faults, Nimai, that's faults, quote unquote. No? There's another Lila when Nimai is playing with Sachi and he hits Sachi, like playing, and Sachi like makes like, oh, I'm dead now. And Nimai starts to cry. Oh, the Lila. No. So all the neighboring ladies came and say, well, you have to bring some coconuts. Coconut water will help her to come back. So, and it's interesting how this Nara-lila plays out, because Nimai is crying like an ordinary boy. And when they tell, bring some coconut water, he just does like this and brings some water, coconut immediately. And everyone was like, oh, where did you get that coconut from? So all these like extraordinary things, but in the context of him being a baby and crying. And so this type of combination we will find constantly in the Lila, basically. There's another day that Nimai was crying, and as usual, they try to chant Hari, Hari, Hari. And he will stop crying generally, but in this case, it was not working. So they kept crying, chanting, sorry, no. So at that time, Nimai was already sharing some words here and there. So you say, today I want to honor the Ekadasi Prasad, which has been prepared by two devotees called Iranya and no. No me mezclen los lilas. Don't mix the lilas. Iranya and Jagadish. Two Brahmins from the area. So it is said that the Brahmins, by hearing this, were surprised again, because how did Nimai knew that we were preparing this Ekadasi offering? No? But of course, they have some insight about who Nimai was, and they offered that to him. Also, there's the typical situation, Nokti-lila of Nimai going with his friends to the banks of the Gangas, with all the different Brahmins were realizing different like prayers and offerings and so on. And Nimai will go with his friends like, gradually silent, when the Brahmins were like pray, and they will go to the Ganga and start like to throw Ganga water in the face. Or even they will take Ganga water and spit Ganga water on the face of they were doing all the achaman and getting purified to perform the ritual properly, and that the boy cannot spit on them. Or they were using all this paraphernalia and offerings, and when they close the door, the arcs, Nimai and the friends will steal all the paraphernalia and all the basically. So yeah, that's part of the deal of being a child, as you know, or eating the offerings. And again, Jagannath Mishra receives the news, your Nimai is quite a naughty boy, do something with him. And Nimai is running from him and telling to Jagannath Mishra, I didn't do anything. Oh, my friends were the ones who did the whole thing, although he was the boss of the whole gang, basically. He said, no, I went to school, and from that place I went straight home. So all the accusations are false. I'm just like, I'm very nice, innocent boy, and so on. So these are the dynamics. No, another moment he will go to the Ganges, and some young girls were worshiping the Devas there. There's worship of the Devas in the Lila, just in case. And do not be scared when you reach there. So they were worshiping different Devas, and Nimai will come and say, don't worship, something similar to Krishna saying, don't worship Indra, worship me. Nimai will say to the girls, why are you worshiping all these Devas? Worship me. Because all the Devas are actually worshiping me. I mean, he's right. All the Devas worship Bhagavan. So if you worship me, you will receive a good husband. Nimai was saying to the young girls. No? And you will have all blessings for Durga, Ganesh, Shiva, because again, they are my servants. But in the Lila, the girls are like saying, what nonsense you are saying, Nimai? You little boy saying that all the devas are your servants and so on. But Nimai by force will take all the paraphernalia that the girls will have, and he will worship, offer to himself. He will do self-puja, basically. No? So the girls started to get angry, like, what are you doing? You're ruining all our offering, all our ritual. And Nimai was smiling and blessing them. I bless you to have very nice husbands and very nice children. So the girls were actually happy with Nimai, but externally they showed like, no, they were angry. No, and even some of them were able to escape with the paraphernalia before Nimai took that. And Nimai say, if you don't give me your offering, I will curse you to have old husbands. Minimum, you will have 4 co-wives, basically. So all the girls in their innocence, afraid, return and gave the paraphernalia. And he will take them again through the south. So, but there is so word that he was blessing all at the end. So that was the final idea. So there are these leelas like this. No? Another leela, for example, Jagannath Mishra was, again, already aware my Nimai is quite naughty and receiving so many complaints. So one day, and he was chastising Nimai on some level. So one night, the Brahmin came in a dream to Jagannath Mishra, say, you don't know who your child is, and that's why you are chastising him, basically. No? And Jagannath Mishra say, I mean, maybe my child is a deva or a yogi. I realized something special is there. Nilambar Chakravarti say that to me. But for me, he's my Nimai, he's my child, and I have to educate him. And the Brahmin starts to say, no, even he's not only that, he's Bhagavan. So you are speaking about educating him, but what's the meaning of educating God? He's God, he's the source of all education, basically. And again, Jagannath Mishra very much in the mood of Nanda Maharaj said, even if my child is God, first he's my son. He can be God also, that's secondary. First, my child. So as my duty as a father, I have to educate him, and if I have to chastise him, I will do that. So he in the dream was speaking totally mad in Vatsalya about like this to this Brahmin who appeared. And when the Brahmin heard that, he was totally fulfilled, like seeing the Vatsalya of Jagannath Mishra, and disappeared. And Jagannath Mishra woke up from the dream and started to share the dream with his different family members. So they were like, wow. Again, remember, this is an Navadvipa, so it's like, wow, incredible dream you had, basically. So basically, this is the end of the Balya-lila, or of the childhood pastimes of Sri Nimai from 1 to 5, which ends when he starts his education process. There's a ceremony called Hati Kadi, which means like, how do you call in English? How do you call this that you use for writing on the blackboard? Choke. So Hati Kadi means like hand choke, when you start like to write and learn the letters of the alphabets and so on. So there's the same ceremony for that. So when and they say that through that ceremony, very quickly Nimai learns all the letters of the Devanagari of the Sanskrit alphabet and all its combinations. It's not so easy. I'm starting to learn that, and he learned that in a moment. So that was the end of Balya-lila and the beginning of his Pauganda, which is from 6 to 10. Some extra minutes for Pauganda-lila? Yeah? Okay. So let's go with Pauganda-lila, and then we will close today's session. So the Pauganda-lila is like the second period of time after Kumar or Balya, which is from 6 to 10 years. So it begins again with Mahaprabhu's education, starting to learn the letters and so on, till he gets married. As we will see, it's when he's 10 years, like a child. So mostly it is described that at this age, Nimai was learning Sanskrit grammar with his first teacher. We will see that along his life, Mahaprabhu has different gurus. And his first one here is Gangadas Pandit. Gangadas Pandit was Nimai's teacher of Sanskrit grammar. So it is said that Nimai went to class with his teacher and some other friends, but again, he will learn everything immediately. Like one time explained, learned. One time explained, learn. And again, Sanskrit grammar is not that easy. You need, okay, can you repeat 108 times more, please, till I can fully digest that? So he just hearing them will memorize, learn them by heart, and defeat all the other students in the capacity of learning, basically. Even elder students, while he was just a boy of 5 years or so. So it is said that, remember, Nimai had another elder brother called Vishwarup, slightly elder, not that elder. So when Vishwarup was a little bit in time, if you will, of age for getting married, according to the age that they used to get married, Jagannath Mishra thought, okay, let's organize everything for Vishwarup to be married. So, but it is said that Vishwarup had a very detached nature and was not at all interested in getting married. So when he heard all the arrangements are being made for you to get married, he basically did one thing, which is he escaped from the house. So he disappeared, and eventually he accepted sannyas, which is basically like a death blow to that project. I mean, if you accept sannyas, it means I won't get married, basically. I will not get married. So he accepted sannyas and he started to do pilgrimage and parikram and so on. So Sach and Jagannath Mishra became very sad in the context of the Lila. They want their child to be a nice grihasta. They are not almost sannyasis in the Lilas. You can see Gaura Lila, Krishna Lila. So in this moment, they say that Nimai, when he saw the sadness of his parents, he stopped being that naughty as he was. He started like to be a little bit more serious and take more responsibility as much as he could, being 5 years in the Lila. But he started like to give more support to their afflicted parents, basically. And he said to them, okay, Vishwarupa accepted sannyas. And that's a blessing to all the family, to have a sannyasi in our family. And by this, he also was showing, I support the sannyas ashram, because sometimes they say sannyas is not meant for Kali Yuga and so on. But Mahaprabhu himself is, even before accepting sannyas himself, he's supporting that by saying this to his parents. And he said, but I assure that I will remain with you here and serve you. So Sach and Jagannath Mishra were like, okay, some relief in that context. But it is said that Jagannath Mishra was really suffering the separation of Vishwarup. And he thought, okay, and Nimai now is getting an education. And maybe if he gets more and more educated, at one point he will take the same decision of Vishwarup. He will learn about the temporary nature of the world and so on. And he will want to accept sannyas. And for Jagannath Mishra, this is too much. I cannot lose the two of them. No? So he thought it's better that he stops studying. He remains more ignorant, so he doesn't need to accept sannyas and all this stuff. So he doesn't reach the same conclusion as his brother. So, but Sach is saying, but who will marry an uneducated boy? He has to have an education. So yeah, they have this type of struggle among, but Jagannath Mishra said, have faith in Bhagavan, he will arrange everything. So Jagannath Mishra asked Nimai, stop your studies, please. And Nimai didn't like that at all, because he was enjoying learning and knowing and all this. So he started to be naughty again, even worse than before, because he was doing something that was edifying for him and suddenly was caught. So he was showing his dissatisfaction by, again, breaking stuff and doing things. So eventually he was so naughty that his parents conclude, no, better let's go make him back to having an education. That's no matter which the consequences may be, but it's too much. He's too naughty. So he continued with having his education. There is some other Lila also, which is mentioned in connection to Vishwarup. And one day Nimai is eating, how do you say in English, betel leaves that were offered to the deity, but as a child he took them and he became intoxicated in the Lila. And so he fainted. And it is say when he was awoken, he had a dream and he shared the dream to to Sachi and Jagannath Mishra. So he shared a dream with Vishwarup, came in a dream, Nimai's brother. He was taking Nimai out of his home with him to travel. And Vishwarup told Nimai, please accept sannyas. No? So Nimai told Vishwarup, but brother, my parents are there. I'm their only child now. You left, and so I will get married in the future. Actually, I won't accept sannyas, and I will serve my parents in that way. And Vishwarup was pleased with that, and he brought him back home. And at that point is that, and Vishwarup told him, I offer millions of pranam from me to Sachi. So Nimai was sharing all this to his parents, who were on one side, okay, he said that he will stay with us, but again, the idea of eventual sannyas is there in the either on some level. Then the moment for Nimai to accept the Upavita came, because remember, Nimai is born in a Brahmin family. So at one point, the Brahmins are receiving Upavita. Upavita means like the sacred thread, basically. So it is said that he appeared on the scene of the sacrifice and he was looking just as Vaman Dev. I remember Vaman Dev is Bhagavan as a dwarf Brahmin. No? So Nimai was not dwarf, but was a child, so it was that similar size. And he started to do madhukari, that is part of the ceremony, like to beg in different places here and there. And then he continued his studies, and it is said that he grew as a brilliant student, and the name Pandit started to appear attached to the name Nimai at this point, no, like Nimai Pandit, because he was defeating everyone, and he was even given explanation that his own teacher was like, he was like overwhelming his own teacher, being just a kid of 5, 6, 7 years old, basically. And as we know, we hear he will present some argument and say, okay, defeat it. Nobody could defeat it. And he himself presented another argument to counteract his own argument. And everyone was like, what? And then, so now you defeat that, nobody could defeat that, not even the teacher. So he himself re-counteracted his second argument. And in this way, everyone's head was spinning, and Nimai was just playing with knowledge. Now, as we will see, the whole idea of him becoming a Pandit, he's not a devotee here. He's not a Vaishnava yet. His conversion will come later. Now he's more interested in knowledge. But eventually the idea of this is that eventually he will become a devotee and show knowledge is nothing without bhakti. He himself, which he's the greatest knowledgeable person, he will leave all that and embrace bhakti. By showing bhakti is the ultimate knowledge, Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge, basically. So it is said that not only, and Nimai sometimes will go with his gang of friends, students, and engage in debates with other groups of students, no, in the banks of the Ganga. They will get and start to have debates on grammar, Sanskrit, and logic, and they were the type of Virarasa or chivalry mood they will experience being that age in particular. And when the debate was getting a little bit heated, sometimes they ended splashing Ganga water on each other and throwing sand of the Ganges, or sometimes. But again, Nimai was, whatever he went, he was like challenging everyone for debate. So everyone was at one point scared because, oh, there he's coming again. No, he wants further debate and so on. And that was his relishment. He was relishing swimming in the waves of knowledge, if you will, a very refined level. No? and he was really absorbed in his studies. He was worshipping Tulsi. Every Brahmin worshipped Tulsi in India. Every Hindu basically worships Tulsi. So very nice student very like seriously and debating with everyone, just putting in practice what he was learning and defeating everyone in his way. No? Then comes another dream that Jagannath Mishra has, and in that dream he's seeing Nimai accepting sannyas. So again, the sannyas idea is coming over and over again. No, and he has like a glimpse of future leelas in which Nimai is Krishna Chaitanya and so on. So he awoke in great anxiety and ran to Sachi, screaming, crying, and Sachi Devi came, what's going on? What's going on? It's a dream. But it is said that a few days after that, Jagannath Mishra passed away from this world. Now, as a mixture of pain from Vishwarup's separation and so on, so he passed away. And of course, you can imagine, now you have only Mahaprabhu as a child and his widowed mother, Sachi Devi, the two of them living together. And Nimai having to, in one sense, being the man of the house, 7-year-old man, somehow having to take care of his mother and certain things, to take further responsibilities, so on. So Nimai himself started to do the funerary rituals of his parents, and trying to help her to maintain their life, I mean, to sustain their life. So it is said that whenever there was some scarcity of food or something, Nimai will come with gold out of the blue. No? And Sachi was like, where do you get that gold? Basically. No? And again, Nimai was just like, gold. No, I mean, not big deal for him. Of course, not in front of Sachi. Like, he was bringing gold whenever it was necessary. So somehow they were passing those days, the two of them living together. At this point, Chaitanya Bhagavatam is sharing very nice summary of the boyhood leelas of Nityananda Prabhu in parallel. We cannot go there, so sorry, maybe for next meeting, because it's a whole portal altogether. So finally, we close this section of Pauganda-lila when Nimai gets married. No, at this time Nimai was, and Sachi herself, considering the option, okay, Nimai should get married, it's a good moment. So it is said that in one occasion, Nimai was on the banks of the Ganga, and one girl called Lakshmi came there. Lakshmi Priya, she will be the first wife of Nimai, as we will see. Eventually, she will pass away and he will marry Vishnu Priya. So it is said that when they saw each other, of course, they are eternal consorts. So naturally, they became attracted to each other in a transcendental way. But they were, again, eternal consorts. So it was like immediate connection. So after he returned from school, he saw her on the banks of the Ganges, and their attraction reawakened in that particular lila. And casually, there was someone called Banamali, who is, I don't know how to say in English, like someone who arranges marriages. I don't know if there is a word for that. Marriage arranger or whatever. Matchmaker. Okay. So there are matchmakers there in the lila also. So Banamali was that. He casually came in that moment where Nimai and Lakshmi Priya were like getting attracted to each other transcendentally. So this Banamali went to Sachi and said, I found a match for your boy, and they made all the arrangements, and eventually Nimai got married with Srimati Lakshmi Priya Devi, and that marks the end of his Pauganda-lila from 6 to 10. So today we will stop here because we have to continue next tomorrow, basically, with the Kishore-lila of Mahaprabhu, which goes from 11 years to 15 years, which is more connected with Nimai Pandit. Now there are some glimpses of his Pandithood, but the real Nimai Pandit will come in the Kishore-lila, we will see. And also we will share some ideas of Bhabuk Nimai, which is the Jovana-lila. After 15 years, 16 onwards, when Nimai will become Bhabuk, which means full of Bhava. That means when he accepts initiation from Ishvara Puri and officially becomes a Vaishnava. But first we go with Nimai being a Pandit, a Jnani, if you will, and then his conversion to Vaishnavism. And that will be for tomorrow. So today here we stop. And if there are questions or something, I think we will leave that for tomorrow morning. We have the Sagosti Q&A in the morning, so you can present questions there. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo ananta koti vaishnava vrinda ki jai.